Welcome in, everybody, to this episode of Discard for Magic. As always, I'm your host, Aaron.
And I'm James, or Jexic, the other host. And today we're excited to bring on Water D.
Hi there.
So, for those who don't know, Water D is one of the best players in the community and a faction expert with many factions. But today we're going to be talking about the Breakers. But before we get to that, Water D, why don't you just tell us a little bit about how you came to Summoner Wars?
The way I found out of Summer Wars is the Dice Tower, actually. I am trying to think where to start the story, and I'm starting to think about the Big Bang, really. But yeah, I mean, because every story starts there. I was testing for a game called Yummy. There is a guy called David Serlin, he's now creating war games, and at the time he was testing Yummy, and I knew him. And after I started testing that game, I found out about modern war games. I didn't know war games had a new era of war games, so to speak. So I started to find out the games, looking at videos, and at one point I found out about Summer Wars. Summer Wars reminded me about a game I used to love, which is called Warlords Watercry. If anyone ever played that game, it's a PC game, a real-time strategy game. He's going to find a lot of similar things to Summer Wars. And yeah, just because of that reason, I was interested. I got it. Then I played it. The first thing I did was to play with my cousin, and I actually kind of love it the first place. But after a few plays, I found the problem that everyone knows before, which is nobody wanted to attack. Just we were playing and just okay, you attack. No, I don't want to move. I mean, I don't want to. And I found that like the first day, I think I was spending like the sixth game or something. And then we play another game, and we will get into that situation again and again. And I was like, what is this? So I wanted online. I just went to the forums, and then a lot of the community know what happened there.
You became kind of a controversial figure because everyone just loved the game and they didn't want to hear anything bad about it. And here you were saying, "Hey, here's this flaw," and people were like, "What flaw? If there's no flaw, you don't play the game right," or something like that.
So I actually noticed there was something amazing about the game, but that was a problem. Oh, of course, there's enough the first time I played a game and I found a problem. Actually, Warlords of Watercry, the game I named, had a similar issue. That's why I found that David Tillin, which I named before. I was playing Warlords of Watercry right, and it was very abusive, and the community also disliked me for pointing out the problems. So someone named David Sirlin, who is a guy that talks about that mentality about people wanting to, I don't know how to say, but say that you should, if you are not playing the game right, if you find a problem, right? He was famous for saying in fighting games, there are some fighting games where there are infinites or loops, and people use that, and other people tell them, hey, you're not playing it right. So yeah, it's funny that I was having that problem while Watercry. I found David Sirlin testing his game. I found Summer Wars, and then I found the same problem. In that game and other games, I created house rules, and that's what immediately did with Summer Wars. But yeah, at first I was like very annoyed about that. But I did actually not play Summer Wars for a while until I got to play online with the new in Basel with the master set. And I thought it was just so much fun that okay, I just decided to play anyway. Yeah, that's how I got into Summer Wars.
Do you think that second edition has done a pretty good job of addressing that turtling issue or the non-attacking issue?
Like no question, obviously, there's no problem there. I think, I mean, I have tried to break Summer Wars second edition, and I just like there is nothing to break. The system works very well. I mean, there is some problems in some end game scenarios that are very awkward.
Yeah, we had a game last night actually that was pretty
Yeah,
awkward.
last night we had that kind. And I think it could be better, but it's just a very, very. I mean, the game is it's just weird, but the game works, right? And it's just those games. I have one of those games every like 200 games or something. They're weird, but they're not broken, right? That the system still works. So yeah, definitely second edition. I think Colby wanted we were testing. I was a tester. For those that know, I was a tester since very early on. Even when the rules were tested, we tested a lot of rules. A lot of rules. I think people have no idea how crazy ideas Colby threw to us, and we tested. I think Colby wanted to not have that kind of problem. I think he never said it in public, but he was very annoyed by those problems. Like he realized I was right to some level. Not right. I mean, other people also found that problem online. I mean, I wasn't the only one. I just was the most open about it, if you say. And yeah, he did a great work at it, and I think that's why I think second edition is so good.
Yeah, you're definitely one of the more vocal and opinionated players, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just something we all gotta understand, you know.
One of the things people often think I'm aggressive because I put that kind of opinions, but I never talk against a player. I just I want to. I'm obsessed with games being, I don't know if perfect, but the reason I'm so vocal about something is because I like it so much. The reason like, if I didn't like the game, I wouldn't play it, but because the game is so good in some aspects. I think Summer Wars is such a good game in some aspects. The flaws annoy me. I always think that critics, when you find flaws in things, I think it's a show of kind of love for something, right? Because if you don't love it, you just don't care. You just move on. I don't move on because I love the game, so I want to be as good as it can be. And I think some people miss that.
Yeah, I think that says a lot about like the game itself. And also I appreciate the fact that you're so vocal in the community. We often disagree and go back and forth on different topics, but having that other voice and seeing those other opinions is always helpful to like change your mindset or think about it in a different way. So I think that's good.
I have this issue sometimes where I say, you see it lately, I say a faction, I don't like that faction, or that faction is weak or strong. And people think that I'm saying it like there is no discussion. Like for sure it's like this. And no, it's just, I want to say my current opinion. I think I might be wrong, and I want someone to tell me why I'm wrong. But I think many people don't feel comfortable just trying to contradict me or just get annoyed that I'm saying something negative instead of just saying, okay, this is, I don't know, just.
Well, I think sometimes you want to be proven wrong. Like you'll say, "This is the
Yeah.
thing I think," and you'd like for it to not be true. Like when you were saying you thought Martin Vargath were bad when they were released, you said, "Someone please show me that they're good." You know, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. I played against several players that sent me a private message, and we played a lot. And actually changed somewhat my mind. Some players, I actually El Canela, is doing a great show with them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm very happy to see that actually they're a lot better than I thought. I still think they're a little weak, but they're a lot better than initially.
Yeah, I don't think they're like the best faction in the game or anything like that, but I don't think they're weak either. I think they're more just like somewhere in the middle of the pack, maybe lower middle of the pack, but they're a fun faction to play.
Yeah, they're fun. I never questioned that. I think, especially because I don't like the episode order, I don't think they're very fun to me. But I think the mountain Vargat are extremely fun. They're super. That wasn't the discussion I was having.
The thing that struck me with the Crimson Order is I just like the art for them. I think I just like the overall just like glow and like the, I don't know, they just have a cool look about them. So I want to like them even though I'm not very good with them either.
I think that a lot of people will like the Crimson Order more because the art is amazing than because they're actually fun to play. They want to play with that art, you know. Just that's why I might be wrong. Maybe some people really enjoy its playstyle. I think the playstyle is very straightforward. Almost reminds me of Summer Wars 1, right? Some factions that are kind of, well, I just move my things forward.
And even attack your own units. Some guys, I started doing that to try to heal up.
That's a good point. I don't have a problem with that, but in this game, I mean, it's just, yeah, I think I don't think they're very very fun. Actually, I think, and actually, I'm starting to. I was seeing the numbers. I don't think they're that strong either. They seem very strong, but once you learn the tricks, you realize that you can play around most of his power. For now, I'm starting to think a Mountain Margaret might be stronger than them.
Really?
Because the Mountain Margaret has a lot of tricks. You know, it's in the end, once you learn the factions that are very hard to think about because they have so many options, which are the Mountain Bargat, become a lot stronger than factions like the Crimson. Like I can see in my head everything the Crimson Order can do because it's not that much. There is no way I can think everything the Mountain Bargat can do, and that gives it the edge.
I think we just need to figure out which faction Prophet's going to play at the start of the season.
It's looking like Crimson Order because he played both. He's in the top 10, I believe, still for both. But he's gotten more games or more wins with the Crimson Order.
Oh, really? I thought he said he was going to do Mountain
He
Varga.
did say he was going to do Mountain Varga, but I saw he was in the top 10 for both rankings, and he has a higher ranking with Crimson Order.
But I just think that, I don't know, out of the last 4 factions, I feel like High Elves might be the strongest, but maybe that's controversial.
100% agree. High Elves might be one of the strongest factions.
Yeah,
sure.
High Elves are really good. Prophet actually is now higher with Mount Vargrath after last night, so...
I say for sure. For sure is what I think. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels really, really stronger. They're very scary.
Yeah, I think Crimson Order, and we can get into this more maybe a little later, but I think they're a strong faction. They might be like top 5. I just think their long game's so good, and when you have strong players positioning them, it's hard to get around their just immense amount of units. Like I played Orange Lazarus Crimson Order the other day with my Mountain Vargrath, and it came down to the wire. It was very close, but he took the cake just on he has more units, and I couldn't out econ him at the end. I'm undefeated currently with the Crimson Order, but I've only played like 6 games or whatever, so.
Well, I could do a whole podcast about how to beat the Crimson Order, but I don't know if you want to derail the podcast.
Oh, we're here for today.
Maybe the next one. Why don't we get into the breakers? What do you think are some good tips for people starting to play the breakers?
I think the Breakers is one of the most underplayed. I don't think many people like them, which makes. I mean, this goes into talking about what are the mistakes people do with them. I think people don't like them because they try to play them in a way that doesn't work with them. I think there's a lot of talk in the community where I say that factions need to be played in a certain way to be good, and I think the Breakers also there is a way you have to play them, in my opinion. And people when they play Breakers first, they don't recognize that there are range factions. I don't know why people try to play Breakers as Terra melee. They go forward with the Kulu, with the Seavers. They send like Wind Archers right in the middle of battle, and then they run out of resources and they lose. I'm not surprised. I think Show said that Breakers don't do well in numbers, and I think the reason is that if you play Rakers as if they're a melee faction, you're going to lose. So my first tip is accept their range factions, keep the distance. You don't want to fight at middle range. The second thing is people are obsessed with assassinating with Rakers. Rakers have great assassination tools, and this happens with every faction that has good assassination tools. People say, okay, I have good assassination tools, so I have to assassinate. But I think a problem is people seeing assassination as a strategy, and it's a tactic. What I mean with this is you shouldn't get into a game thinking, I'm going to kill the opponent summoner from the start, right? I won't care about economy. I will just, if you do that against a good player that just understand that you're coming at him, he's just going to cluster, put his summoner in a safe place, and you're going to spend a lot of resources just maybe you're going to damage the summoner, but once you take like half his life, then there's not going to be any more resources to finish it off. Assassination is a tactic in the sense that sometimes you have free pokes to the opponent's summoner when they try to take advantage of it, and once you did enough damage, then you should start thinking, okay, I did all that free damage without spending resources. Now, to finish off the game, I need to spend the extra resources to finish off. What I mean is people sometimes, like against a full health summoner, send a Wind Archer to die. I mean, sending a Wind Archer doesn't do that much damage, right? For ranged, it's not that much. And if you send it next to the opponent's summoner, and then it gets killed very easily because true life is very easy to take on, you spend a lot of magic just to not do enough. I think that's another. And there's sometimes even worse that they use Hypnotic Call to remove the blocker and then send the Wind Archer, and you're spending so much resources, and he's going to just send back the summoner, put 2 gates down, and then you have no resources to play the Thracian gate. So that's another tip. And yeah, the third thing is the strength of the deck is Mind Witch, Wind Mage, Deceiver combo. That's the strength of the deck. You need to focus on just those are the 3 units. They're going to start. Everything else is an accessory to that. Even Tekulu. And I think people don't summon them enough and just understand and set up the board in a way that favors them, which means keeping the distance, just trying to protect your Mind Witch with your Deceiver and having your Wind Mage around to just do all the economic moves, so to speak.
Would you say that you try to summon all 12 of those in a game, like each Deceiver, each Mind Witch, and
Maybe from the 12 copies, total, yeah. Generally I summon 10 at least. If you can, sometimes you can 12, but sometimes you just can't. And especially if you want to summon 2 champions, you probably can. And I think there are many games you want to summon both champions.
And when you say 2, you mean both, like Gul'dun and Kalal?
Yeah, the 2 champions the Reekers have.
That's what I was gonna ask. You said 2 champions like they don't have a third. Are you saying you don't value Galwork?
I think it's too bad. I don't think the champ. The champ is bad. I think it's weak. With that said, isn't the wrong deck, because what I was talking about strategy, that it's not what the deck tries to do. And flight is a very powerful ability, but in Ava it works well because the whole army wants to just dive in. You don't have anything to dive in even. Like, what are you going to dive? Like the Wind Archer? The Wind Archer is going to get there anyway if he really wants to. I don't know, it's just there are 1 in 200 games where I see Warlock win a game. Maybe it's your last champion and you summon it, and sometimes I've taken people by surprise, and I've sometimes keep it in hand to surprise people, and it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, in general, it doesn't fit the deck. That's the main problem. But also the stats are a little too low.
Since you don't want Galwork in the deck, I petition a trade. Eater for Galwork. We'll put Galwork in the Cave Goblins. Give them all flight. I think it's a good trade.
I see. Warlock in the Cave Goblins would be a lot better, for sure.
It would be terrifying.
Flying Beast Riders.
Yeah, flying Beast Riders.
Yeah, it's in many you want it in an aggressive deck. It would be better in the Wayfarers.
Yep. It would be good in Wayfarers for sure.
But the Kulu doesn't want to do that.
I think it'd be good in like Tundra Orcs and pretty all kinds of decks that they don't make sense in.
Yeah, it would be great in Cave Goblins just because they have the magic and they don't need it.
Here's an use. Let's talk about when you can use Warlock other than you have to summon it because it's your last summoner, your last champion. Sorry. Sometimes you see the against a very aggressive player. It also works versus one of the hardest matches with Polar Dwarfs. Sometimes Svara just pushes too much, and you can see that's the attitude of the opponent, and you can keep Warlock in hand and surprise Svara. And that's the hardest matchup, so I recommend any trick you can use to win. Sometimes Warlock works because it surprises Svara players, and actually it can go through all the gates and all the. Yeah, maybe a Hail Mary like Warlock surprising Svara is how you win that matchup sometimes. So that's a use. But yeah, if you see your opponent just diving in with the opponent summoner, sometimes Warlock is the answer. It has a role in the deck, but I really summon it once in every I don't know if 200 games, but maybe 1 in 50 games is where I summon. So that I wouldn't say he's very popular.
Now, talking about some of the other champs, I think Kalal is underrated and people don't always see the value there. Every time I have to fight Kalal, I hate it because she's so hard to take down because of the range and the push. How often do you think you summon her, and what do you see her uses being?
Well, Kalal is actually my favorite champ because, the only reason I don't summon her is if he comes in the first hand, then I have to discard it and accept it. Most of the time I need to discard her. But otherwise, it's my favorite champ. First, because it works every time. Doesn't matter what's the flow of the game, you want her, which is already great. But I agree, she's terrifying. I don't think she's that good because it's very expensive. But she's good. I mean, she's terrifying. She's very hard for a lot of factions to deal with. I think that's another thing that I see people do with her. Just try to use her kind of as a melee champion, and her strength is that you can kill her if you play her well. It's very very hard to kill. Sometimes I have her alive for like 6-7 turns, which is insane. Yeah, sometimes people use it in a way that dies in the 2 turns. If Kala dies in 2 turns, she's useless. The power of her is that killing her is very, very hard. It's very easy to protect her. She protects herself against melee units. She can even attack them and move them away, and they can reach her. So yeah, I think she's a summoner, a champion. I would say someone that you should always try to go for, and actually is very, very, very scary to face off. And I think it's very annoying. And the most important thing in endgame scenarios, she's game winning. I try to. I mean, I can't decide when they summon her, so to speak, because it's hard to keep a champion for the end of the game. But when she comes at the end, it's the best time. It's when the opponent use more of the tricks, most of the potential blowouts, and then she comes out and she wins the games.
And yeah, I feel like the fact that her ability has 3 range is huge because she can hit something from max range and then push it out of range.
Yeah, it's hard. Melee units can't touch her, and range doesn't do that much damage, obviously. And obviously, you can protect her with the Seavers. Just put anything in front of her, and it's worth it. Like if you need to use a wild mage in front of her, do it because it's better for the wild mage to die than she gets damaged. Something it happens at endgame is which I think is very funny, is when you control a unit with a Kulu and then use that unit to protect Kalal after she attacks. You control the unit, then force the unit in front of Kalal. So I like to do that.
I play Breakers, which isn't very often. They're not one of my favorite factions. I tend to lean towards Gul'dun just because of the cheaper cost. But that 1 or 2 magic is just like so much more. Yeah, so that 1 magic, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it feels like a lot sometimes when you're in the game and you're like, I don't have a way to get that extra magic, so I'm gonna just go with Gul'dun this time.
The problem with Gul'dun is twofold. One is he is a master of losing Breakers games. And with that, I mean, if you're not careful, it's very easy to just summon Gul'dun, get Gul'dun killed, and then you lost the game, basically. So I think it's very hard to use. It needs to be in that very specific scenario where he's not going to die. Also, you need to be able to take advantage of all his attack power. You need a unit. It's very hard to take advantage of Gul'dun. That's why sometimes I don't summon it. It's very necessary for some matchup and situations, especially versus like Vara or any fact. I mean, it's the best thing you have when you have your opponent summoner in your territory, bringing gates. It's the best gate killer. But other than that, I prefer to not use it. I mean, that scenario is very common because it's how you beat Breakers, right? I mean, one of the ways to beat Breakers is bringing the summoner to the Breaker side and start pulling out gates. And if the Breakers player doesn't respond to that well, Breakers loses. And I think that's one of the reasons Breakers are not very popular. If an opponent comes in and start putting gates, I think it's very hard to respond. You need to learn how to manage those situations, and it's not easy. And I think a lot of people just feel like this is how I think things go after facing the situation and feeling Breakers don't have a good response to that. I just feel like demotivated to keep playing them. But I don't know how to teach how to respond to those situations because it depends a lot on the matchup. But one of the ways to respond is Gul'dun, right? Gul'dun can take gates very fast. And actually, Gul'dun works well in very close scenarios. When I say close, I mean those games where there's a lot of gates everywhere and you can move. Well, that's the Breaker's worst scenario, and that's Gul'dun's best scenario. So that's why I think it's very important to deal with the worst of the Breaker situation. But other than that, I think it's very, very dangerous play. So I'm not. I'm not so keen on him as I'm with Kalal, where it always shines.
Yeah, I've definitely had games where I'm playing breakers against like Tundra Orcs, like when Magnifico used to play them, and I just like he's just on me on like turn 2 or 3, and I just feel like I don't have space to work with, and it's a good tip that maybe Gul'dun is the answer to your problem. Then
Yeah,
I don't know.
good answer. Another answer is actually mind control. When you see, I'm going to talk how to try to respond to that. Takulu needs to be looking at the opponent summoner, like at the eyes, like see what Takulu moves. His Takulu's shove in the deck is canceling the opponent summoner. What I mean is, if you see the opponent summoner approaching, Takulu needs to go meet him. Why? Well, if the opponent summoner is playing on your side of the battlefield, you're going to lose. That's true. I mean, that's so you need to stop it. How do you stop it? Takulu needs to go meet him in the middle and start pinging them and threat that put him, the opponent summoner, in a situation where if he doesn't retreat, you're going to mind control his units and kill him. You can start not only with my counter, with my capture, you can start like the protecting units, start like capturing the units and hitting him. But that's the role of Takulu in the deck. Actually, if the opponent summoner doesn't come, I think Takulu should. I would say Takulu is like the big boss that's waiting, that needs to come out if the opponent summoner comes, but otherwise it needs to be waiting on the back just for the end game. Because the other strength of Takulu is an amazing end game summoner. If you get to the end game with full life, Takulu is very, very scary, especially if you have some events, but I mean without events. And I think anyone that faced Takulu at the end game knows how annoying it is that you send a unit and the unit gets control. And the thing is, at that stage, often it's very hard to manage the magic, so you take advantage of the magic you get from killing the unit. And Takulu doesn't mind because it doesn't get the magic, but doesn't mind because there is no more magic to spend.
No more cards, yeah.
So yeah, often a lot of the games are in the end game where after all the dust is off the battlefield, Takulu comes out, start capturing units, and wins the game like that. So it's a final boss. However, there are two situations to get Takulu out of the big boss castle, so to speak. One is when you see the opponent summoner coming, you need to go meet him wherever the opponent summoner is coming. You can't let him be in your doorstep. And mind control is and mind capture are the two tools you need to put pressure on him. And the other is I use the Kulu to. You need to control the front of the opponent gates. And if you can't put a deceiver there, you need to capture the unit and then put a deceiver there. That's the other role of mind capture. So yeah, those are the role, and that's a way you respond to. If the opponent puts a gate in the front of you, you need to quickly put a deceiver in the front of the gates. And if you can, for any reason, because there is a unit, then you need to mind capture it, and then put a deceiver. But yeah, you shouldn't let the opponent have gates close to you because you're going to lose. You can't fight. That's my point. I said earlier. You can't fight at melee. If you fight at melee range, you're going to lose the game.
So you mentioned a couple of their matchups, like Tundra Orcs. What do you think are their worst matchups, and which ones do you think are their best?
Actually, the best matchups are the ones where the summoners doesn't want to come to your side. I think if you're playing the range game, you beat basically everything. I think nothing. I see, and this is going to be controversial because I see some people playing Summon Elves trying to beat me with the Summon Elves at a range game, and I think I win most of the time. I don't think the Summon Elves can beat Takulu at a range game, but I see people keep trying. Maybe someone can show me that will show me eventually that they can, but most of the time when the Summon Elves just try to play with the Rakers at range game, I'm like, okay, I mean, let's do that. Some people, I think it's some of the better players realize that that doesn't work, and actually, the best strategy against Takulu is just trying to put a lot of boost on a Rhino, and then do a big push, and then use waving to keep pumping out units, and then use that advance to move forward Abua and start putting gates forward. So it's a little more complex. That's the right strategy against Breakers. The point is, if Breakers can keep the distance, it wins every fight, in my opinion. In fact, one of the few decks that can actually fight the Cooler range is the Shadow Elves. But then I was talking with Sip that he thinks that Breakers still win that fight. So any faction that has troubles has troubles transforming the game into a melee game will have troubles against Tekulu. The worst matchups are the matchups where the summoner has great tools to say, okay, this is going to be a melee game. And then Takulu is just a disaster. And there are two matchups I'm thinking, especially with versus 2. One is the Wayfarers. They're so fast that it's like the game starts and they're in your face. And you spend all your whole time fighting a melee. That matchup is a disaster for Takulu. I really don't like playing as Takulu. It's also not really fun because it's just you're trying to survive. And yeah, there is no. And the other is the Polar Dwarfs. And there's two reasons for that. One is classical shift. I said that one of the ways you counter your opponent trying to put gates in your territory is just sending Takulu in. But there is no counter to that when there is classical shift. Svar at some point say, okay, there's 3 gates in your face, and you're dead. It's very hard. You need Gul'dan very fast in that matchup. I could get into that matchup specific because I found a way to have a chance, but it's an awful matchup. There is no way around that. And Gul'dan is part of the answer. Actually, Warark, as I said earlier, it's one possible answer if you for some reason you can play Gul'dan or after Gul'dan but it's important to understand that the reason is that they're going to be in your face. And actually, Mountain Bargals depends a lot on when they get a ram, right? The other day I played a game against Massimo, I think, and he did first turn ram, and I had like the summer on my face on turn 1. Yeah, I lost the game. It just if they ram turn 1 and you have like a lot of units and Thunder in your face, and then put the gates, it's going to be very, very hard to survive that. But I think that the matchup, I didn't play enough, obviously. I think if you, I did play another 2 games, but I think if you have time to keep the distance, it can actually a very good matchup. If you have time to prepare for the ram, so to speak. But if you don't have time, yeah, it's going to be very hard. Well, my point is that's how basically you will find what are good matchups. If you can keep the distance, you win. If your opponent is actually good at closing space, it's going to be a hard matchup. Actually, Cape Goblin is good at closing space, but that matchup is actually okay because you have so many tools to deal with all the swarm. Like there's one of the few matchups where Blast is actually very good. Actually, the Seaver White Mesh combo is extremely good.
Yeah, because you can just kill things with by pushing, and also mind capture is very good.
Yeah, mind capture is very good. Magic. Also,
and incidentally, the champions are bad because you can mind capture them and make them retreat.
Yeah, without that, it's an even matchup. Thanks to all that. So, one of the things I wanted to mention is that the event set of there is something that I think helps that breakers are not very popular. And I think the core of the fun of Summer Wars are the events, and without doubt the weakest event set in the game is the breakers. Like one event is good, which is Perplexing Tempest. And then the other 3 events are very situational, very situational. So it's not a faction about setting up big events and winning that whole game, which is how many factions are. And I think people enjoy that. But I think the fun of the Breakers is the Wine Mage. The reason I have fun with the Breakers is I think playing with the Wine Mage is like the most fun tool. But if you are a person that really enjoys setting up the big turns or the big events, right? Like Enrage or people clearly enjoy out of the shadow turns. Then breakers are not going to be very fun because that the events of the breakers are very situational tools. Except the Perplexing Tempest, that's the biggest maybe setup event. But the other three are very situational tools for very specific situations and roles. And the core where you have the fun is playing with the wine measures. And the mind witch. And mind witch is very fun, I think, copying enemy. Because every matchup, the mind witch is a different unit, so to speak, right? There is always one unit you want to copy, and your opponent is like, okay, I want use this unit so he doesn't copy, but it often happens that it's your best unit, so you
like Seeker in
yeah,
Shadow Elves or something.
Yeah, Seeker or Border Archer. I mean, you're not going to use Border Archer. It's going to be complicated. I mean, that's so. But yeah, that's a big pro. And I think it's very fun trying to. It's very fun to use the Mind Witch with the other units. I think that's where the fun of the deck relies. That if you want a faction with big showy events, I think the Breakers are going to disappoint you. I think a lot of people try to make it a lot about setting up blasts, right? And blast it's a very fun event, and when they in the tournaments make it 0 cost, I love it. But with 1 cost, you should only use it in very specific scenarios.
The one thing I've found, going back to what you were saying about like the events being very situational, I feel like when those situations come up though, it's very satisfying and like can really turn a game. Like sometimes when people are like crowding your gates or something and you play Hypnotic Call to pull a guy off the gate and then summon something in a spot your opponent thought they were safe, that can really turn a game too.
Yeah, I agree. Blast often can do crazy things. It's very fun. I agree. Blast is. I understand why show. I don't think Breakers need help. I think they're very. I think one of the strongest factions. I mean, one of the strongest. They're in the middle, but a little above the middle right now. So it surprised me to me that the tournaments they try Blast Zero, because why you want to help a faction? And actually, if you see the last 2 tournaments with Blast Zero, they have like 56%, 58% win rate.
Yeah.
So why you want to? Well, I for one side, I'm like, why you want to help a faction that's already clearly strong? On the other hand, Blast Zero cost is so fun. I just it's because you can spend it like you don't need to find the perfect situation, right? You just
use it.
just use it, and I think it's very fun. So I'm sad that it costs 1 for that reason. But if you're talking playing to win, you shouldn't use it lightly. Spending 2 magic to that effect, it's only good in very specific scenarios, but it can win games for sure.
Yeah, I mean, talking about taking a middle faction and buffing or nerfing them, I felt the same about fungal dwarves recently, but I mean, that the 1 health on Koldak is here to stay, I guess. But
honestly, I think with 1 less health, the fungal dwarves are still one of the best factions, especially because they keep releasing factions. And I don't know, if I had to guess, the average power level of the latest faction is below what it used to be. If people were worried about power creep, but I see the opposite. I see what's the opposite of power creep?
or seat
Power
Or
stagnation. I don't know.
well, I see the opposite. I think the average power level is going down. I don't know if it's a conscious thing or it's just by chance, but the more factions are released, if they keep releasing at this level of power, fungal dwarves are still going to be at the top of all that. So I don't see why you people complain. I mean, they're still very strong.
I mean, I personally think they're like 8th or 9th best right now. But
wow. Okay. I think you're the only one to think that. I think most people put him at least top 5, at least.
I mean, if we did like a personal tier list of like how good you are with a faction, they'd probably be in my bottom half. But I don't know.
And they would be my top faction if we did a personal tier list because they are my strongest faction.
My worst is by far Fallen Kingdom, but I've played like 10 games in my last 1,000 with them, so
And that would probably be my second one. We're just opposites. That's why
which is why we're where it works.
Yeah, the league matchup this week. I was talking to Massimo, and it's like I love this league matchup because it's 2 of my favorite factions and strongest factions. But
Yeah.
I won't
I knew
distract
I'd
from breakers
yeah.
anymore. Water D, what do you discard for Magic with breakers? Because I feel like that's a question that a lot of new people often struggle with. I feel like I struggle with it sometimes with the breakers of like, oh, these events are so situational. These champs are really good, but a lot of magic. Like I don't always know what to discard.
Well, Lark is a good card to discard. Then you follow events. Like I said, they're situational, so you probably shouldn't. I mean, the first hypnotic call and blast are generally out very easily. Like I should discard them. Probably also the first mind control. Then just the second copy. It's a matter of how the games go. Also, gates. You don't need many gates. Generally, only someone one gate most of the time. Sometimes a second, but like the first gate can go, and often the second one. Yeah, then you probably discard like wind archers. I generally have someone like 2 per game. It depends of the matchup, of course, right? But there are matchups where you're going to have more or less magic, so you have to. But the wind archers tend to be only play 1 or 2. Uh,
Is I don't know. Sorry, I'm just thinking like is Wind Archer kind of a good answer to polar dwarves if they're not advancing on you? Because you can kind of hit a
yes, the
parapet
problem
from
is
really
they're
far away.
advancing at you. That's a weird situation. If they're not advancing to you, you're winning. The problem is they're going to advance to you, right? I mean, actually, Wind Archer is a good. I mean, one of the reasons you win the range game, I think this is important, is because of Wind Archer. Usually, with someone one, but that one, it's not there to die. You need to protect it like it will last you like a long time, right? You need to protect it with the seers, pushing away with. I think this is something important. If you play the Wind Archer just to send it to die, then that Wind Archer is useless. Okay. If you need to do that, then use Mind Witches. Mind Witches are cheap and do almost the same damage. And generally, if they come with an ability, they do more. The Wind Archer is the unit you summon to not die. If you think, okay, I'm going to summon this Wind Archer and then I'm going to date this turn, that is probably not the right. I mean, obviously, it's very. Summoner Wars is a very situational game, but the way this thing is, I'm going to summon this Wind Archer to keep it for the rest of the game. If you see my
Yeah.
games of Rakers ever in the tournament, you will see that I summon a Wind Archer and it's probably alive for the rest of the game. Just it doesn't die.
Yeah, I've seen you kind
That's
of
why
like
you can
hook with
discard
them
them.
and then wind mage them back behind something. Yeah,
Yeah,
behind a gate or behind another
they
deceiver.
can
That
gain
kind of
or
thing.
just bring a deceiver in front of them.
Yeah.
Uh, so generally I summon. That's why I only summon 1 or 2 per game because I don't need more. Why if they don't die? They start to die when you run out of deceivers, and then well, uh, you probably need to start dying. Or there are some desperate situations, obviously, when they're pushing on you and you just send the Wind Archer to put pressure. Well, if you can go to specific scenarios, you can go ranting about an hour. But the general idea is that the Wind Archer is there to live for many turns. But that because of that reason, you only need 1 or 2, and so I discard 2 in general.
I think
However,
that's
sometimes
fair.
versus some factions, I often mismanage the magic and I discard 2, and then I realize I end the game with too much magic. So that can happen. So you should be careful.
So to recap, basically you'll probably discard at least half your advance and a couple wind mages or wind
Wind
archers
archers. Yeah, I want
and
1
wind
or
archers
2 of the 12 copies of the
of
good
the other,
commons.
and then Lark every game pretty much, and
Yes,
then
and then
try to
1
summon
gate at least. I
Koala
never
and
use
do
the 3 gates, so the first gate can go very easily.
Oh, yeah. Well, because you're not advancing on your opponent most of the time, so you don't have like as good
Yeah,
places to put
the
gates.
gates are
And
mostly
gates get in
to
the way of you attacking, right? So
the gates are mostly to yeah. That's something I see people do with Rakers that we go see that people do as a mistake. Is they move Takulu forward and then placing forward gates. I don't get it. Why people do that? I don't know. But yeah, there's no reason to that. I mean, just it's okay. It's okay if you like do that. If the opponent comes with a summoner and you need to face Takulu with her own advance, and then in the advance you need to protect her. Then you summon a gate next to her to protect the flank. I mean, that's okay, but you don't have as a goal to summon a forward gate. Summoning, you don't want your units to be forward. So you want a gate, Charlie. And often it's one of the factions where I summon a gate on the first row, just to have a, a summoning spot on the first row and keep the units at range. But yeah, Charlie is just one gate. The first gate, I mean, I use HU. I'm bad with the letters. HU gate, which is where the house where I protect my Wind Archer, and then I summon another gate just on the right to have a summoning spot, and then it's very rare that I summon the third gate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Awesome. What common mistakes do you see people, besides what you've already mentioned, like making with the breakers?
I think I mentioned most mistakes. I think the fact that they played as melee. I'm trying to think of something else, but I think I named them all. I just play them as melee. Don't play them as melee. Keep the distance. Understand how to. The hardest thing to do, the goal is understand how to deal with people trying to put gates on your side. I don't know if that's a mistake, but that's something you need to focus. I don't have it solved. Like, I don't say I know how to do it perfectly, but that's the hardest part. Because if you can keep the opponent from coming to your side, you're going to win. If you can avoid people putting a gate on your side, you're going to win. So that's your focus. I don't say it's easy, but you should. And maybe I should learn how to use more Lark. Actually, I'm not using it, but maybe there are more scenarios than I found where Lark is actually good. I just don't find them, but yeah, I think that another mistake, like I said, is using the events very lightly. People use the events not call and blast, and the situations where they're not getting much value. And the truth is that it's very hard to get value from them. So just accept it and discard them if you feel fine. They're mostly used for very specific situations on the defense to get out of troubles, and then mostly to find situation to assassinate the opponent. Actually, it's very hard because they're very specific scenarios where they work. But yeah, often I think people overuse those events because I think people want to have fun with events. So they're sad that, oh, okay, every event they have, discard them. So yeah, I think you should try to only use them if you really find a good value in them, and it's not easy to find the value, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's one of the mistakes I often make with breakers is I'll hold on to events for too long because I've had those situations where I've won games with the events and like I've seen how powerful they can be. So I'll be like, oh, like what if I need blast like next turn? And then I'll be like, well, what if I need it the turn after that? And then
Well,
I've held it for like 4 turns and I'm like, this has just destroyed my hand.
yeah, I think that's why the first blast is always goes. Almost always goes. The first hypnotic call. So I try to keep. If it's my second last, I struggle to discard it because, as you said, especially by the end game, it starts to become a lot better because often helps you finish the game. But the first blast is very easy to go, in my opinion.
And I'd probably even say the same for mind control, because sometimes you're hanging back and you know you're not going to use it for the next 2 or 3 turns, so you should probably discard it, right?
Yeah, and actually the same. I try to save my second mind control because actually in the end game, it's often very good card.
It just wins the game. It's just like
because what
people
happens
forget
in the
about
end
it.
game.
They'll say, "Yeah, like I don't think that's going to happen." And
Shall I
then,
the opponent summoner? Because really, mind control works. I often use mind control early game if I'm getting pushed to get out of the situations. I think just a recent game against Mountain Bargat, I did that. I had a lot of my face and then just use mind control and make them kill each other, which I like. But that's not a very common use. Don't try to. I mean, it's a very fun use, but don't try to find it because it's very unusual scenario. But in the end game, eventually, here's the thing. it doesn't matter how much the opponent wants to get the summoner in the corner. Eventually, if the game goes long, summoner needs to go out, and then it's where all these events work, right? When the opponent summoner just needs to expose itself, and that's where Takulu is at. And mind control is very annoying especially against a melee summoner, because just you can just ping him and he needs to come alone. If he needs with help with commons or God forbid champions, well, mind control will just kill him. So yeah, I think mind control is actually good, but the problem is I'm talking like 12, right? So the first 11 turns, mind control probably not going to find a great use.
Water, do you also make a lot of videos on YouTube, on your YouTube channel, which is Water D? Do you have any upcoming videos or any? I know you were talking about in the community, potential tier list upcoming. Anything you want to give us a sneak peek on that, or?
Yes, I want to make at least the faction tier list. I've been thinking. I was almost ready to do it, and then the new factions were released, and I don't want to do it until I have a good idea how strong those two factions are. So yeah, I'm reserving. I think in like 1 or 2 weeks, depends on how much I play, I will be feeling like I have a good idea of how powerful they are. Because I'm changing my mind, like I said early on, very fast on them. Like at first I thought like the Crimson Order was clearly better than the Mountain Vargas, and now I think the Crimson Order are worse than the Mountain Vargas. So I know I'm playing a lot. I'm playing like a lot of games.
Yeah, wait, you're like 200 ELO above the next person.
Yeah,
or 300.
Yeah, I'm playing a lot. So I think in 1 week, 2 max, I'm going to release. I'm trying to think how deep. I'm trying to change. I'm releasing and starting to change how I make some content. Like for example, the guides. I'm writing a guide for the Polar Dwarfs again because it's outdated. And I
Right,
noticed that what?
Because the ice ram has changed,
Yeah.
right? And events, active events, and everything. Yeah.
The problem is when I started the guides, the idea was they were very like introductory guides, but I'm starting to realize that the people that read them want more than just introduction. I mean, for some talks I had. So I'm trying to make it a little more in depth, but I don't want to make a super in depth guide because I think those are super niche and nobody wants to read them in general, except like the very crazy niche people like me. So I'm trying to make
the
the
more
guides
broad.
I'm trying to find the right spot between a very superficial guide and a very in-depth guide. And that's the same with the tire video. I know if people just want the tire list, I just can put it on like obviously in Tire Maker and just upload, which I've done a few times. But I want to talk about why my idea. I'm trying to figure out what I want exactly from the guide, from the video. My idea was that what I want is I want any people that sometimes people come often send me a PM. Hey, I see that you think that faction is strong or weak. Why? They want to ask me why. This happens every so often. And yeah, I want to have like a site where people say, okay, they want to know why I think that faction is not as strong or what's the strongest. And like some people were surprised at some point that I think vanguards are weak, right? That for you too, I know that that's not a surprise why they're weak, but some people are surprised. And yeah, I want to have a site where anyone not to see the whole video, but can go to any faction, right, and go and say, okay, why this faction is considered strong or weak. But yeah, I'm thinking how in depth I want to go. I think that's very hard thing to figure out how in depth you want to go into. There is a point where it's just too shallow, and a point where things get to just too niche, and people just stop reading or listening. So yeah, I'm working on that in my mind.
Well, we talked
Yeah.
to Massimo the other day, and he told us that the most read or clicked on guide, at least on SW Zone, is still the Beginner's Guide by Eldritch Noodles. So that says something that there's still a lot of beginners just reading the first stuff to take in, and
Yeah, that's good. I don't know. Yeah, something that surprised me a little is that actually the content I make is for other players. Like I just make the content because, in first glance, I don't make it for anyone. I just make it for me. I just enjoy thinking and talking out loud about things of Summer Wars. That's the truth. But
I mean, that's why we're here, right?
yeah, it's just basically so. But I've been surprised by some comments on YouTube or some comments in private that more beginners read my content than or is interested in my content than I thought. So now I feel like more responsible of my content, so to speak, because I want new players to come into the game. Um, Actually, someone that I don't know if I should talk for him told me that the reason they got interested in Summer Wars was because watching my content, which surprised me that he didn't know Summer Wars. I know how he got there. I mean, it was in some interest, and I don't know. I feel like I have more responsibility. Just if someone gets into the game because my content, then I feel like I should make it attractive enough for a beginner, despite being interesting enough for a veteran.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough question to answer, but I do look forward to when you make it again. Um, and it's kind of the same thing for us too. I think is to walk the line between something that someone could jump in on, and it's like the question of when to attack the summoner. It's hard to know.
Yeah. Or actually, that's an important thing about to talk about the breakers. I think one of the reasons I like the breakers, I think they're very interesting, is because they're a very defensive range faction, but you need to know when to counterattack, when it's time to start to assassinate the opponent summoner. Right, like you say, when you start attacking the summoner, that's a very important question for the breakers. I love factions that have to switch to, okay, I was this plan, and now I'm going to do a full switch. That's why I played Polar Dwarfs. Polar Dwarfs are the master of that. Polar Dwarfs are very, like, I'm here, like, in my fortress, and I'm just going to just fight this ranged game, and suddenly in a turn is snap. I'm going to advance my whole fortress and be in your face and just smother you. I love those factions that do that. Another faction that does that is Ava, but actually I'm not good at her for some reason. I played 100 games with her and I still don't win that much. But they are
Yeah.
like that. You need to be like. The point is, yeah, when to switch. I think it's a very important thing you need to learn as breakers. And I personally think that factions that need to think about that a lot are very fun. Instead of like I know Wayfarers where it's just I have to attack all the time and hope I win enough fast enough.
Yeah. I want to watch more of Shampoo's games because he's said that he thinks of Wayfarers as being a more long-term faction sometimes, and that you have to play around Seek the Horizon. But he seems to think they're more dynamic than we give him credit for. But I don't know.
I would love to see that. I know that some people know I don't like Wayfarers. I have a grudge against them, and because of I agree their games are fun. I have fun with their games. When I play against Wayfarers, I'm having fun. So I think ultimately that's all that matters. That's why I don't think they're terrible. But they're so. The problem is from turn one, I know exactly what's going to happen pretty much. Strategically, I mean, it doesn't have like victors. It doesn't have like. It's going to be Celeste coming at me at full speed, and me trying to survive. That's the game. And yeah, I think that Summer Wars 2, something that did great with many factions, is that many factions are not like that. Most factions are not like that. They have like, and they're hard to play against because you don't know what they're going to do. Like I said with the Polar Dwarfs, when it's going to come that glacial shift that shifts the game, right? Maybe it becomes a full range game. I have played games again. I don't do that. I'm going. I mean, I shouldn't tell this to my opponents, but yeah, I'm going to shift at some point. You're going to see my fortress advance. But I see some people just play range game the whole game, and there isn't like that with Wayfarers. They're just going to come at you. There is no other strat. There is no, and that's what I'm noticing with Crimson Order. I'm actually going to start playing Crimson Order to try to find if there is another path, because I can't believe that's the only path. I think that they have tools for other strategies, but the point with Wayfarers is that they have only one strat, and it's just that. So it will be amazing to see if Shampoo finds a way to say, okay, that's not true. They have other ways to play the game. I think it will be good, I mean, for the game more than the faction, to see that they can add more than just pure aggression.
I'm sure Shampoo will be anxiously awaiting your tier list to debate where you place the Wayfarers, and I'm looking forward to debating where you place some other factions. I always enjoy the debate around the tier list, even if I don't agree with where people place them. Like Shampoo placed Wayfarers like third best or something, S tier.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to I don't mind spoiling my title. I mean, if anyone wants to know my thing about some faction, I give it. So I think Wayfarers actually have fallen from my tier list quite a bit. In fact, I consider them like a B tier right now. Because I think the more people are learning how to deal with aggression, they are just more disappointing every time. So I don't think they are good. So if Shampoo think they're S, we are going to have maybe even a match to see. Or a few matches to see. I always love to do that. People don't like when I do that. When I see, okay, you come play me. People feel like I'm too confrontational. But I think it's like I said. To me, games are like a philosophy discussion. I like philosophy a lot, and philosophy you should bring your argument and let's debate it. And the way we debate in strategy games is in a match. That's how you debate. I love to do it. So
I
I
think
like to
that's
play
good.
against people that disagree with me to show me why I'm wrong, and sometimes I am. So it's always interesting and fun to see.
So, I like to play against you just to challenge myself. I don't necessarily think I'm going to be right. But
Well, that is the problem. I agree that there's the argument, and I actually had that discussion with Sirlin, which mentioned early, which is a problem, right? Because in this argument, the problem is sometimes your arguments are it's the same in the debate. Sometimes you have maybe the right ideas, but you don't have the right data, or you don't know how to debate. And that's the same with Summer Wars or any strategy game. Sometimes you have the right idea. Maybe some part of your brain realize that faction is actually very strong, but you don't have the skill, the tactical skill, or just some skill that allows you to show it. And I'm conscious. I'm not saying when I win a match, when we have these arguments in strategy games, when we play, that if I win, clearly, I mean, so far that's what we see. But I understand that like I've been at the other side. I mean, in games where I feel like something is strong, but when I play against a better player, they just destroy me because they could destroy me with any faction or any. I mean, I've been there, so I know.
And and always the dice can mess you up too, because I played I played like 3 games against you, 2 against Savannah Elves and 1 against the Polar Dwarves. And in the Polar Dwarves game, I counted. I think I went 8 out of 20 on Svara. So like, although I guess if I did better the first turn, you might have backed off more and not left her up. But it was just like I couldn't execute even the plan I was trying to do.
Well, I want to say 2 things about that. The first is the first thing that you said, how I will play Swara if she will be hit. That's something that happens a lot with some testers or some people that play, that they think like they were more lucky with my summoner. My summoner will be dead, but I'm like, if you will be lucky against my summoner, I will have done different things.
You would have backed off, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will push my summoner as long as he's healthy. As long as he's not being healthy, well, of course I'm going to play different. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And the second point is, well, dice is not a problem because we could keep arguing, so to speak. I mean, arguing in terms of playing, and eventually the dice is going to be even out. Now, if it's a problem of skill, we can play 200 games and it's going to be the same. So that the dice isn't a problem.
Well,
I think
I'm not saying I don't think it's a problem in general, but like sometimes you can get frustrated, and I try not to get tilted about stuff.
I'm going to say that sometimes when we have these arguments, so to speak, with Luis Canela, I played a lot with him. We had a good talk. outside of Summer Wars. He always gets frustrated. He gets frustrated when he wants to prove me a point and feels that he loses because bad luck. He gets very frustrated, and I think that's not a good idea to see it. I mean, especially because it's not like I'm going to, I beat you. That I know you're wrong. I'm just saying, well, so far you haven't shown me, but you're gonna have a next time. I mean, yeah, you can keep trying. I'm just, I think every belief is only true as far as every belief is true. I don't know how to say this in English, but every belief is true for now. Like there is
Until proven otherwise, or
yeah, but basically, there is an astronomer who said in an interview that I loved what he said. The only truths we have are provisional. That the only truths we have are provisional. That is, we only have provisional truths that we have until proven otherwise. Basically, what you said, and yeah, that's what you see. I mean, I know you will get frustrated for losing for feeling that you couldn't prove your point. You have more tries, and it's not like I will at some point close my mind and say, okay, it's settled. Like it's like this way. No, I'm just always open. So you keep trying until. Obviously, I'm not going to change my mind until I see a reason to.
I mean, you heard it here first. You beat Water D one time with any faction, and he'll change his mind that that's the strongest faction. But Water D, we appreciate having you on and coming and talking about breakers, giving us the tips to make those stronger breaker plays. Anything else you want to say to the community, or anywhere else they can find you?
No, really. No, I have the YouTube channel, but I'm not. I will. I mean, if you're in the Discord server, which is where I think most people are, you're going to find my posts when I post them on the YouTube channel.
All right, sounds good.
We appreciate you being here, and this has been another episode of Discard for Magic. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.